The mute button clicked like a guillotine falling in slow motion. There I was, Emily Hayes, mid-sentence in the all-hands Zoom call. My voice cut off as if I'd vanished into thin air. The little notification popped up. You've been muted by the host. And the host? None other than Alex Whitaker, the CEO's 25-year-old son, fresh out of some Ivy League business program, lounging in his ergonomic chair with that smug grin plastered across his face. He didn't even glance my way on the screen. He just kept droning on about synergistic pivots and disruptive efficiencies, words that sounded impressive but meant absolutely nothing in the context of the code I'd poured my soul into for over a decade. But let me pull back just a bit. Because that mute wasn't the spark, it was the explosion. The fuse had been lit 3 weeks earlier when I got pinged for a restructuring sync in our sleek San Francisco office. Nexus Tech had grown from a scrappy garage startup to a mid-tier player in cloud security, handling data for banks and e-commerce giants. I'd been there from day one, sketching algorithms on napkins during all-nighters, debugging crises at 4 a.m. while the city slept. My hands had built the core of Sentinel, our flagship encryption platform, layers of redundancy that could withstand DDoS attacks from nation-states. And then Alex showed up. He sauntered into the conference room in designer sneakers and a hoodie that screamed, "Tech Bro Casual," his handshake limp like a deflated balloon. "I'm here as your innovation catalyst," he announced, flashing that half-smile that said he owned the room.
His dad,
the CEO, had slipped him in quietly, calling it a fresh perspective. But we all knew it was nepotism wrapped in corporate jargon. Alex started slashing processes left and right, ditching our rigorous peer reviews for quick huddles that felt like improv comedy gone wrong. He once suggested migrating our entire backend to a no-code platform to democratize development. I bit my tongue, remembering the nights I'd fixed breaches that could have tanked multi-million-dollar contracts. I didn't fight him openly. Instead, I documented everything. Every email, every change log, every idiotic suggestion. Because, in tech, knowledge is power. And I had a vault of it. My team, veterans who'd shipped code under fire, looked to me with raised eyebrows during his rants. But I signaled calm. Play along. I'd whisper in side chats. Let the kid dig his own grave. And dig he did. He reorged us overnight, making my group report directly to him. Temporary, he said, but his eyes gleamed with permanence. That's when I dusted off my original employment contract, buried in a forgotten HR folder. Nexus was bootstrapped back then, and the founder, Alex's dad, had been paranoid about IP theft. So, he tied Sentinel's core licensing rights to me, the principal engineer, as a safeguard. It was a relic from our early days, never updated through acquisitions or restructures. Lazy oversight, sure, but it meant the system's intellectual property hinged on my continued role. If I walked, the licenses could void, triggering clauses that locked out access and breached client SLAs. I stared at that paragraph in Section 4.1b for hours, the weight settling in my chest like a stone. Not anger, just quiet realization. They thought I was expendable, but I held the keys. Alex kept pushing. He brought in consultants from some boutique firm in Austin, guys in khakis who talked big but couldn't explain basic sharding. They started optimizing Sentinel, tweaking configs without understanding the fallout. One afternoon, an alert pinged my phone, staging environment down. They'd botched a firewall rule, exposing dummy data that mirrored real client vaults. I offered to jump in, but Alex waved me off in Slack. We've got this. Time to embrace the future. My team went radio silent, the chat thread dying like a forgotten conversation. They knew what was coming. That night, alone in my apartment overlooking the Bay Bridge, I backed up everything. Personal notes, commit histories, even the old whiteboard photos from our first prototype. I encrypted folders, purged caches, and revisited that contract. The clause was ironclad, no reassignment without my sign-off. I printed my resignation on plain paper, signed it with the same pen I'd used for my offer letter 12 years ago, folded it neatly. No drama, just preparation. The air felt heavier, charged with the unspoken end. The all-hands call was the tipping point. Alex announced the outsourcing of Sentinel's maintenance to those same consultants. "This will free us up for blue sky thinking," he beamed, as if handing over our crown jewel was a promotion. My inbox exploded with DMs, team members panicking, old colleagues confused. I unmuted to ask about transition docs, to ease the blow for everyone else. But click muted. "Appreciate the input, Emily. But let's keep moving," he said, his voice smooth as silk. I held up my badge and the folded letter to the camera, counted to 3 in my head, and left the meeting. Silence.
Pure.
Vibrating silence. On the grid of faces, I caught Sarah Klein, our general counsel.
Freeze.
Her eyes widened, and she excused herself mid-call. She knew. The clause. The ticking bomb I'd just armed. By the time I powered down my laptop, Slack was ablaze. Screenshots of my exit circulated, some with thumbs up, others with shocked emojis. Engineers speculated in private channels. Did she just quit on cam? Legal wasn't amused. Sarah fired off an urgent email to the CEO. Sentinel IP at risk. Clause 4.1 be activated. The founder, Alex's dad, hadn't touched the tech side in years. Too busy with investor schmoozing.
But now, panic set in.
I didn't stick around to watch. I grabbed my go bag, drove north to a quiet cabin in Mendocino,
and went offline.
The redwoods whispered as I unpacked, the weight lifting from my shoulders. They'd figure it out or they wouldn't. Either way, I was free. The cabin's porch creaked under my weight as I sipped black coffee, staring at the fog rolling in from the Pacific. It had been 24 hours since the mute, since the exit, and my phone was a brick in my pocket, dozens of missed calls, texts from numbers I recognized as company lines. But I let them ring into oblivion. This wasn't about revenge. It was about reclaiming what was mine. Time.
Peace.
The right to walk away from a machine that had consumed me. Back in the city, the war room was assembling. Sarah Klein, sharp as ever in her tailored suit, pulled the founder into a glass-walled conference room, blinds drawn against prying eyes. "We have a problem," she said, sliding the contract across the table. The CEO, Mark Whitaker, skimmed it, his face paling. "This is ancient history. Can't we just amend it?" Sarah shook her head. "Not without her signature." "And she's gone." Alex hovered in the doorway, protein bar in hand, trying to play it cool. "Come on. It's symbolic. Emily's just being dramatic." Sarah's glare could cut glass. "Symbolic? This ties our entire IP to her. Breaches start in 14 business days." Mark rubbed his temples. Memories flashing of those early days, me in the garage, wiring the first Sentinel prototype while he pitched to Angels. He'd trusted me with everything, including that clause as a mutual safeguard. But growth had blinded him. He'd forgotten the fine print in the rush to scale.
Now,
with Alex's innovations, it was biting back. The consultants tried pushing changes to prod, but alerts fired, access denied. Root tokens required my approval. A failsafe I'd implemented years ago after a near-miss hack. By evening, the board got wind. An emergency call convened, voices crackling over speakers. "How bad?" one investor barked. Sarah laid it out. "Without Emily, Sentinel locks down. Clients can terminate without penalty." We're talking $150 million in annual revenue at stake. Murmurs turned to shouts. Alex defended himself. She was resistant to change. We needed fresh blood. But the room turned on him. Fresh blood? You mean incompetent overhaul? A director snapped. I felt none of it. Curled on the cabin's worn couch, I flipped through an old novel, the kind with dog-eared pages and forgotten wisdom. My mind wandered to the commits I'd authored, thousands of lines that kept data safe while executives golfed. The phone buzzed again, Sarah. No voicemail. Just the persistent glow. I ignored it, stepping outside to breathe the salt air. Freedom tasted like mist. Monday hit like a storm. Alex posted in the company Slack, transition proceeding as planned. Delusional. Behind the scenes, engineers scrambled, digging through repos for workarounds. 1. My former protege, Jake, found an old thread where I'd warned about rushing updates, pushed too hard, and the safeguards kick in. Clause 4.1, B isn't fluff. He forwarded it to legal. Sarah read it.
Sighed.
She saw this coming. The consultants faltered. They couldn't deploy without triggering compliance flags. Their hip Python rewrites clashing with Sentinel's hardened C++ core. A client pinged, heard rumors of instability. Need assurances. Mark drafted a response. But Sarah vetoed it. We can't lie. Disclosure or die. Alex cornered her in the hall. Just reassign the IP. Problem solved. She turned slowly. You don't get it. It's her property until she signs off. And you muted her. Pushed her out. That night, Mark stared at his desk. A half-written apology in longhand. Emily, we undervalued you. But he crumpled it. Pride. Or denial.
Meanwhile,
I hiked the coastal trail. Boots crunching gravel. Mind clear for the first time in years. No alerts. No fires to put out. Just the ocean's rhythm. Reminding me I'd built something unbreakable, including my resolve. Leaks started small. A finance email slipped to a vendor. Tech volatility noted. By Tuesday, whispers hit LinkedIn. Nexus facing IP crisis? Investors called for heads. Alex's vision was dissected in closed sessions. Nepotism at its finest. Mark defended his son at first. But crack showed. Why didn't we update the contracts? No one answered. Because I'd been the constant. The one who stayed while others chased exits. Sarah tried every channel. Certified mail to my address, returned unopened. A discreet message through a mutual contact. Let's talk resolution. I saw it pop on my watch during a sunset walk. Deleted it without reply. This wasn't negotiation, it was closure. In the office, panic brewed. A junior dev,
Mia,
who'd shadowed me on late shifts, confided in a friend. Emily held it all together. Without her, it's chaos. Word spread. Morale tanked. Alex's updates grew sparse. His confidence cracking like cheap code. I logged in once. From a secure VPN in the cabin. Not to sabotage, to finalize. Open the private branch. Added a commit. Final stewardship transfer. None. Author relinquished.
pushed.
Logged out forever. The wind howled outside, echoing the void I'd left. They felt it immediately. System notification. IP chain broken. Lockdown imminent. The notification rippled through Nexus like a virus. Principal engineer unassigned. Restricted mode activated. Time to breach. 10 business days. Mark's office became ground zero. Whiteboards scrawled with timelines. Lawyers poring over docs. Can we sue? One asked. Sarah shut it down. For what? Enforcing her contract? She'd counter with wrongful dismissal vibes. Alex paced. Phone in hand. This is bluff. She'll cave. But doubt crept in his voice. The smirk gone. Clients smelled blood. A major bank paused payments. Audit required before renewal. Another, an e-commerce behemoth, demanded proof of continuity. Mark fielded calls. Voice strained. We're handling it internally. But internally,
Bedlam.
engineers refused overtime, whispering about job hunts. Emily warned us, they said in break rooms. Sarah drafted a statement, bypassing PR. We regret the circumstances leading to Emily Hayes' departure. Her expertise was foundational. Sent to key clients. A olive branch. Or damage control. Mark nodded approval. But his eyes were haunted. He'd built Nexus on my back, yet handed the reins to his unqualified son.
Now.
The bill came due. 50 miles north. I watched seals bask on rocks. My laptop gathering dust. The novel lay open, its themes of isolation mirroring my own. Buzz, Sarah again. You were right. I stared at the screen, let it fade. Rightness didn't matter, respect did. They dismissed me as legacy code. Obsolete. But obsolescence? That's what happens when you ignore the foundation. By midweek, the board convened virtually. Alex needs to go, a voice insisted. Mark resisted. He's learning. But metrics didn't lie. Stock dipped in private valuations. Rumors fueling VC chatter. Core IP tied to a ghost? Unacceptable. Alex's resignation email dropped Thursday, pursuing new opportunities due to vision misalignment.
6 sentences.
No fanfare.
Gun.
Like vaporware. Mark held a core team huddle. Voice cracking. Has anyone heard from her? Silence. Sarah. She's offline. Completely. They brainstormed rebuilds. Hire a team. Reverse engineer. But Sentinel's intricacies, my intricacies, defied quick fixes. Biometric locks. Chain vaults. All my design. Months. Maybe years. An engineer admitted. And clients won't wait. I drove inland. Rental car kicking dust on winding roads. Stopped at a diner. Ordered pie. Eavesdropped on locals chatting weather. Normalcy. My phone stayed silent now. They'd given up. Or so I thought. But leverage shifts quietly. A contact from an old conference messaged, Nexus hunting you. You okay? I replied. Better than ever. Word would circle back. Legal tour through audits. Finding gaps everywhere. And signed transfers. Overlooked addendums. We assumed she'd stay forever, Mark muttered. Assumption, the killer of empires. Sarah pointed to my old warning in the repo. If forced, it breaks. Prophetic. Panic externalized. A leaked investor note hit forums. Nexus IP volatility. Stocks trembled in whispers. 3 clients bailed on meetings. 1 invoked early termination. Limbo isn't business, their email read. The board demanded action. Get her back. But how? Pride barred apologies. I reached the desert edge. Turbines spinning lazily under vast skies.
Parked.
Climbed the hood. Felt the sun bake away the residue of corporate chains. Opened the laptop one last time. Root manager loaded. Credentials intact. Revoke all, the prompt asked.
Click.
No drama. Just finality. Screen dimmed. Wind filled the gap. Back home. Alarms blared. Full lockdown. Repos froze.
Deploys halted.
We can't even patch, devs cried. Mark stared out his window. The city lights mocking him. What have we done? The lockdown hit like a digital earthquake. Sentinel's dashboards went red. Access tiers collapsing under the weight of that single clause. Clients flooded inboxes. Outage? Breach? No. Just contractual Armageddon. Mark called an all hands. Sans Alex. We're navigating challenges. But Transparency leaked. Engineers shared tales of my warnings ignored. Of nepotism's folly. Sarah pushed for outreach. Personal apology.
Now.
Mark penned it finally. Handwriting shaky. Emily,
We failed you.
come back. On your terms. Sealed. But unsent. Too raw, or too late. Instead, they tried intermediaries, alums,
Friends.
One reached me via email. They're desperate. I archived it. Hiked a ridge. Watched hawks circle. Desperation wasn't my problem. Morale cratered. Resignations trickled in. My team led the exodus. Without Emily, what's the point? Jake posted in a farewell note. Clients escalated. Full audits demanded. Renewals frozen. $50 million at risk, finance reported. The board ousted Mark from ops oversight. Focus on salvage. In the desert quiet, I reflected. Not glee. Just peace. I'd built Sentinel to protect data. Yes. But also integrity. They'd commoditized it.
Me. Now.
The system protected itself. Rumors snowballed. Tech blogs hinted. Nexus unraveling over IP dispute. Stocks plunged in private trades. Mark faced the mirror. My son. My mistake. Sarah convened war rooms daily. But options dwindled. Rebuild from forks. Impossible without my roots. I closed the book, literally. The novel, and figuratively. The chapter. Drove on. Toward open roads. Weeks blurred into Resolution's shadow. Nexus staggered. Clients fleeing like rats from a sinking server. Mark sent the letter finally. Via courier to a forwarded address. I opened it by a campfire. Flames dancing on the words. Regret. Please. Offers of equity. I let it burn. Embers rising like forgotten code. The company pivoted desperately. Partial rebuilds. Emergency hires. But scars remained. Lawsuits loomed from breached SLAs. Reputation tarnished. Alex surfaced at a startup. Lesson unlearned. Mark retired quietly. Whispers of failure trailing.
Me?
I consulted freelance. Built anew on my terms. No chains. No mutes. The desert taught me. Foundations matter. Pull the wrong brick. And empires crumble. What if they'd listened? But they didn't. And in that silence, I found my voice stronger. Unbound. Was it justice? Or just consequence? The wind knows. But it doesn't tell.